with which he'll be able to transport Medusa's head post-beheading. You see, even once decapitated, his head will still be able to turn a person to stone, so it's best kept safely tucked away. Now, you may recall that Athena said Perseus would get weapons from the Hesperides, but the gods never are all that predictable. They only give him the bag. From there, he's given some ghosts. This is likely because he's Zeus' son. Not everyone seeking to kill a Gorgon gets god gifts heaped upon them. Perseus is just lucky that way. His mother less lucky about the whole Zeus and the golden shower thing, but whatever. Zeus gives Perseus an adamantine sword, which always makes me think of Wolverine and X-Men. That's adamantine, right? It's really totally different. Hades gives him a helm of darkness, which actually just makes the wearer invisible. Hades famously had one of these himself, crafted by the Cyclops, so it's possible that she's a loner. Hermes and This is a new scandal, so Perseus can fly. And finally, Athena gives him a polished shield. Perseus then piles on excess of tools and weapons, arguably a few too many given how difficult the task actually ends up being, and then he flies off using Hermes' adorable sandals to find Medusa. Perseus finds Medusa's creepy lair, made creepier by the countless stone figures scattered about. There were so many one might forget where they are and assume they've stumbled upon some kind of disturbing guiding center. But alas, these statues are all merely Medusa's many victims. But can you call them victims when they're really just the result of her living in the eye? I feel like that would make an awful lot of accidental victims and a general bummer for Medusa. Anyway, finally, having found her lair, Perseus sneaks up, and he finds that she's sleeping. So he comes up with a plan to be overly cautious in disposing of this snake-haired woman. By using the polished shield that Athena gave him as a mirror, Perseus is able to safely approach Medusa without turning to stone should she wake up. He then quickly and cleanly cuts off her head. Easy. Whatever you expected would happen when Gorgon's head is cut off, I promise you that's not what's coming next. Pegasus, the thing that's flying north, and a young man, both fully grown, growing from the scalp of Medusa's neck. Physics schmizzing. And here is where I go on a bit of a rant. Pegasus is a single flying horse. Period. Pegasus is his name. There is not a breed of flying horses called Pegasus. You cannot have a Pegasus, or many Pegasuses, or Pegasi, or what have you. There is one, and that is his name. Add to that Perseus is the one flying him in order to kill Medusa and Clash of the Titans, and you've got a whole mess of problems. Honestly. While we're at it, Heracles, or whatever, doesn't ride him either. He has to come once. He's adorable as a baby, even if he is made of clouds, just so that you don't have to show a beheaded woman in a children's movie. Number 2, you do not refer to him as a great flying horses, and I appreciate that. And number 3, I love that movie, and the first thing that songs. So the two other Gorgons, they're pretty pissed about your sister because she just had her head cut off, quite unceremoniously, and so they pursue her. They're less concerned by the fact that a found silver man left out of her stuff, but whatever. They're pretty used to that kind of stuff, I guess. Anyway, Perseus has Hades' helm of darkness and slips it on, becoming totally invisible, and he just gets away. He also has the ability to fly away because of Hermes, so basically he has no problem now. Like I said, he's a bit overrated. Perseus, having got safely away, goes to head back to the surface, or he's going to bring his head. Along the way, he stops to rest in Ethiopia, which is basically just a mythical Ethiopia. Anyway, Ethiopia is ruled by King Hephaestus and Queen Cassiopeia. Their daughter is Andromeda, a beautiful princess. Cassiopeia is, in essence, an ancient pageant doll, and she's been boasting non-stop about how beautiful her daughter is. Cassiopeia has even been saying that Andromeda is as beautiful as the Mary is. Seen it. And as you will learn, this is never a good plan. Why, anyone ever thinks it's a good idea to say anything even vaguely insulting to the gods is beyond me. Number one tip for surviving Greek mythology: do not compare yourself or anyone else favorably to the gods. It will always result in disaster, especially your death. In this case, just awful. So, the god of the sea, Poseidon, who is himself a giant ass, he's often hurt by this comparison to his precious Nereid. Mortals can never be as beautiful as the gods. Don't you ever learn, pesky humans. So besides his case, focus, light, and Cassiopeia, and as punishment, he sends sea monster Tito to ravage the town. Let me just vehemently point out that he sends a generic sea monster, and not a kraken, because that's the thing. Once more with feeling, the kraken isn't our Smit, for God's sake. It's far away from Greece, Norway. In case you didn't know, check them out. It's really cool. This is not a thing. This sea monster is just laying waste to Ethiopia. Nobody's down. King Hippias just does not know what to do. None of his soldiers can stop it, and the town is just being decimated. So, like all good decision makers of the ancient world, Hippias refers to the oracle for guidance. The oracle says something stupid in response, as they are wont to do. She tells Capheus that the only solution to the sea monster problem is to sacrifice Andromeda. This seems pretty unfair to me, frankly, given it was Cassiopeia's fault in the first place. Andromeda was smart enough to never compare herself to a deity. It was Cassiopeia. Regardless, ancient Greek kings are often totally chill about the idea of sacrificing their daughters for any other reason. See Agamemnon and Troia. Seriously, it was awesome to be female there. Just a total bar. So Capheus says, "Oh, great plan, Oracle, let's do this." And they fasten Andromeda naked to a rock and leave her to die. Why she must be naked is beyond me. One can only assume it was a man's idea. I know, let's strip her down. Sea monsters don't want to eat those pesky clothes. Fortunately, along comes Perseus, just in the nick of time. He rolls up, immediately thinks maybe this is the best way of handling things, and Perseus slays the sea monster as if it were the easiest thing in the world, suggesting Capheus may want to up his defense system. Why, logic notwithstanding, this totally worked. Perseus, saving Andromeda is all pain. You want to get married to me and avoid your parents who just sentenced you to certain death by sea monster? Yeah. Phrases I wrote there. You can't see the podcast. I'm doing it. And Andromeda's all, oh, this sounds good, and thanks for not being Theseus. Perseus and Andromeda head back to Serapis, with Perseus just dragging along that old severed head. Best honeymoon ever. When they arrive, Perseus finds out that his mother has got refuge from Polydectes, who's now gotten violent with his advances. Danae has been training to stick with. Thankfully, it's just a much better dude than his brother. Perseus, being such a good son who totally loves his mom, is naturally not thrilled by this development. As if he didn't already find Polydectes an insufferable fool, then he's got this going on. Polydectes, on top of being a real asshole when it comes to Danae, is also a real dick about Perseus' accomplishments in bringing back the Medusa's head. Literally the thing he tasked Perseus with doing. Anyway, Polydectes mocks him, thinking he was a super easy feat, which devil's advocate, but that's beside the point. He hates Polydectes. Perseus is a badass though, and at this point he's totally lost his patience with Polydectes. He walks up and just whips out Medusa's head, and BAM! Polydectes is turned to stone, handled. Now, I'd like to take a moment and quote the mythweb.com statement about this particular moment in Perseus' story, because it made me really happy. Quote, "And since Polydectes took his truly heroic accomplishment for granted, he himself was ever afterwards taken for granted." Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you for that, guys. I love a good myth for one of my sources, if that was clear. Now, thankfully, Polydectes is totally out of the way because he's just made of stone. Danae is free to do whatever the fuck she wants. Awesome. And it turns out that marrying the old fisherman princess was kind of a long-term goal. Now that his shitty brother is under the picture, it's totally been banging all along, so it worked out pretty well. And on top of that, dead brother means he becomes king, so bonus. But wait, didn't this all start with King Acrisius of Argos summoning his father, learning that there was a prophecy that his grandchild could overthrow him? What about that? And isn't that every prophecy? No, but it is a lot of them. Now, there are a bunch of different versions about how this original prophecy ends up fulfilled. They all have the same results, but my favorite is the version where we learn that Acrisius has been exiled for one reason or another. It doesn't matter, he's just exiled in Argos. He's not the king. But Perseus comes in off being a generally good guy, and he returns Acrisius to his throne in Argos. At this point, maybe they don't know they're related, because I think that Perseus would have been less keen to put this guy back in power. You know, he locked him up in a wooden chest, threw them out into the sea. Bygones, baby. Anyway, Perseus helps Acrisius, and he's hanging out in the palace afterwards. When Acrisius accuses Perseus of lying about having killed Medusa, which I lie about that. But also, what if it's true? So of course it is true. And what does Perseus do? Not one to mince words. He proves it by whipping out the head and BAM! Acrisius is stoned. And so we're led to believe that Danae and Dictys and Perseus and Andromeda are happily ever after. And frankly, they're in the minority in Greek mythology, so let's take it while we can get it.
Return to base. My support come.
This has been another episode of Let's Talk About Myths, baby, where I rant profusely about mythology so much more. It's great. It's really entertaining, and I really sometimes wonder what they were on, if they had some kind of crazy ancient drug that we don't know about. We haven't figured it out, because, I mean, a organ alone, like, I really, truthfully wish that I could live in a time where you can come up with something like an organ and not be like, you're science fiction, like, you actually think it's real. Like, they may not, you know, they never expected that they were going to run into one on the street, that's fine, but, like, they legit thought that there was a man named Perseus in their history, and Perseus killed a gorgon on top of having been, you know, born out of
give you some of my
bubbles
energy.
falling from the ceiling and into his mom's vagina. Like, completely aside from that, they killed a gorgon, and, you know, out of her head stump flew a flying horse and a full-grown man. It's great. I love it. My name is Liv, and I love this shit. Let's talk about myths, baby. I'm Liv. I used to report stories about ancient Greek mythology. First off, thank you to everyone who's been listening to the first 2 episodes. It's really exciting. If this is the first time you're hearing it, what are you doing? There's a whole 2 more just waiting to be binged. It's not that long. Binging, but there you go. 2017, everything's binging. Anyway, I'm sitting here with a gigantic wine glass with only a small amount of wine in it, so it's actually quite difficult to drink from. Anyway, this week we're carrying on with our good friend Smit, king of the gods, ruler of Olympus, and all around awesome being. Or I guess not quite whatever. Anyway, this episode is devoted to a selection, that's right, only a selection of Zeus's many encounters with women and one man that aren't his wife. Some are consensual, and many are very much not. Basically, this is the story of all the people Zeus straight up tricked into having sex with him. Just a warning, this episode contains many not at all descriptive, it's simply great. It's important to note that when it comes to telling ancient Greek myths, they're fiction, but also some stories are primarily told by men, and they apparently used the word trick to describe basically anything they wanted, and they used it for abduction and also actual rape, but it was never treated as troubling, which is of course a problem in itself, but my point is that I don't treat it as troubling, it's just because it's a story, and I'm not trying to be a dick. Anyway, we're going to start today's collection of stories with the so-called encounters that led to the birth of the second generation of Olympian gods. Since it explicitly told the story of how the first generation of Olympians came to be, it seems only reasonable to continue now with the second generation. And they're basically all Zeus's children, so it works into this whole theme I've got going on. Now, as we know, Zeus is married to Hera. It's important to note that Hera takes his union seriously. Zeus, on the other hand, seems to consider himself above the rules of order. Zeus is king, after all, and what has history taught us if not that rulers tend to feel they can do whatever they want? This is episode 3, King of the Gods and Creepy Old Man who takes women. First up on our list is Matus and the birth of Athena, Zeus's favorite child. Matus was a titan, or titaness if you want to get gendered with the names, which I don't. Chronologically, it's unclear when this went down, who was Zeus ultimately left to fight up, but regardless, Matus is a titan. She's wise and she's cunning, and she looks the qualities as well. Zeus, as king of the gods and giant slut, has sex with Matus, and apparently he immediately fears the consequences. As with most men, he does not seem to have considered the consequences beforehand, because there was no more sex. So as sex with Matus, he fears the consequences because he is foretold that she will bear him children, one of which is more powerful than him. And he is, after all, the son of Kronos, who was the son of Uranus, and we all remember how that went down. So, of course, Zeus does what any professional person would do after they choose to have sex with someone and then regret it because they would have a child that overthrows them. He eats Matus. But alas, it is too late, and Matus is already pregnant. Because Zeus has what to birth, apparently, and this is great symbology, so eating her does little to prevent the pregnancy from going further. Instead, Matus immediately begins constructing a helmet and robe for her beloved daughter. This is all from within Zeus, mind you. That's right, Matus is alive and functioning within Zeus, because mythology. It's great. So, here she is, just hammering away at this helmet using some sort of internal forge, and poor Zeus is really suffering from all the noise. He's got a tough life, you know? So he develops an awful headache, the poor guy, and his solution is to have Hephaestus, the god of the standard, external forge, cleave at Zeus's head with an axe. You know, as we all do to save ourselves from a migraine. In fact, I'm feeling one coming on now. I wonder where my hatchet is. So, Hephaestus cracks open Zeus's head and BAM! Out pops Athena. She's born a fully grown adult. She's fully clothed in a helmet and the robe that her mother made for her, and she's armed with a shield and weapons, and she utters a deafening war cry as she springs from the crack in Zeus's head. Athena is badass from day one. The annoying thing about this story, though, is that the mythology at large takes this to mean that Zeus conceived Athena himself, which is obviously bullshit, because patriarchy. So, there are so many references to Athena being basically a pseudo, virgin birth, Zeus is the new Virgin Mary, sure, but fuck that, because Matus was her mom, and it only makes sense, frankly, because Athena is the goddess of wisdom, and Matus was also all about wisdom, and the word Matus even means wisdom in ancient Greek. So fuck the idea that Zeus had her all on his own. We know it doesn't work that way. Next up is Leto and the birth of Apollo and Artemis. So, Leto was the daughter of two titans. She was the goddess of womanly demure and motherhood. Basically, she was the opposite of everything I ever want to be, but that's beside the point. Leto's story, when it comes to Zeus, is fairly vague. Basically, the myths say that her hidden beauty, probably something to do with her being demure, catches the eye of ever-lustful Zeus. So Zeus, taking a liking to Leto, like I said, he doesn't think much of marital vows, as we'll learn endlessly, and he impregnates her with twins. What we will also learn endlessly is that Zeus has arguably the most powerful sperm in history. He literally never fails to impregnate a woman. It's troubling, honestly. So Leto is pregnant with twins, and of course Hera finds out. Spoiler, Hera always finds out. And she doesn't take this one.
Shock.
If it is a certainty that Zeus will impregnate a woman, it is an equal certainty that Hera will find out and punish that woman. In her jealousy, she causes all the lands of Earth to shun Leto, making it so that Leto can't find anywhere to give birth to her babies. Why is it that women blame other
Check out
women?
these
Like
pinchers.
Jerry Springer, but ancient.
Jeffrey the hot
So Leto
pot.
is searching everywhere on Earth
I
just
am
for a place to give
Jeffrey.
birth. And finally, she finds an island which is not attached to the Earth. It simply
Hello,
floats.
darling.
Because of that disconnect, it doesn't have the same restraints that Hera put on the rest
You
of the
have
world.
chosen me?
This
I
island is
choose you
Delos,
as well.
and it's what the ancient Greeks considered the center of the Cycladic Islands. Frankly, I've looked at a map and can't tell you what they were talking about, but I guess they didn't have maps and just gave it a solid guess. The Cycladic Islands, or the Cyclades, are better known as the Greek is the god of music, truth and prophecy, healing, the sun and light, plague, poetry, and more. How plague gets in there is beyond me. One of these things just doesn't belong. Apollo, as the god of prophecy, takes the island of Delos as his sacred location. Delos becomes a sanctuary to the cult of Apollo along with Delphi on the mainland, and they both ultimately house the two famous oracles.
Minions have spawned.
Now we're at Maya and the birth of Hermes. Maya is one of the Pleiades, a nymph. Now, I've been binge listening to the last podcast on the left lately, so this word means something
shiny.
so different
A
now.
gift, perhaps?
Maya is a nymph and not a member of the alien race that's been secretly controlling and living among us since the 40s. So the Pleiades are also a constellation of stars, which I imagine is where the name of the alien race came from. And those stars were named the Pleiades because of the nymphs who were eventually placed in the sky as stars, forever pursued by Orion. And it's spelled somehow like that. I don't know. It's constellation is really my thing. Except for them being named after Greek gods, I know basically nothing else. So Maya is the daughter of the Titan Atlas and the Oceanid Pleione. Oceanids are basically oceans.
Enemies behind
So the
us.
Pleiades, Maya and her sisters, were born on Mount Helene and were married. So Maya in turn spent all her time hanging around the mountains, and as a rule she doesn't consort with gods, because she's smart that way. But Zeus, of course, would have none of that and basically just sneaks up on her and rapes her, because that's just how you do in ancient Greece. It's also, again, not treated as troubling at all. It's just like a fact, like, oh yeah, Lenny raped her, the usual. So that's good. And you guessed it, Maya is of course impregnated, because as we've learned many times already, Zeus' seed is about as persistent as he is. And ultimately Maya gives birth to the god Hermes. Now Hermes is the trickster god. Like I mentioned, he really was quite a bit like the cute little fellow in Disney's Hercules with his little winged sandals and his winged helmet. So after giving birth to Hermes, Maya wraps him in blankets and she goes to sleep. You know, she's fucking tired. But there's something super weird about Hermes as a baby, and he's basically reversed the human body like super hard. Almost instant. While Maya is sleeping, just having given birth to Hermes, he crawls away to Thessaly, and by the time it gets hard, on his first full day of life,
There is trouble
he's
in her
stolen
heart.
some of Apollo's cattle. Apollo being this super weird newborn, like, half-brother. Like I said, monster is the word we use to describe him.
Ultimate is ready.
So he's only been alive, like, 24 hours, and he's stolen a bunch of cattle to proceed to then invent the lyre from a tortoise shell. That's right, the musical instrument. Zeus's kids are all prodigies or something. I mean, it's just weird. So Maya, rightly, refuses to believe that Hermes is the thief of the cattle, because that's prey. Zeus sides with Apollo because patriarchy, I guess. In this case, it was also the truth, but whatever. Anyway, it proves that Hermes can keep the cows as long as he gives Apollo a lyre. It's a fair trade, I guess? But now what is Maya going to do with a herd of cows? Anyway, the lyre, though, goes on to become one of Apollo's signature identifiers. Since he's the god of music, it comes with things. He's carrying around in basically like every painting, every sculpture, everywhere. So Hermes did him a real favor, if you ask me. Next up is Semele, and the birth of Dionysus. Semele was a mortal woman, and as far as I know, she's the only mortal woman to spawn a full-blown god. There are lots of demigods out there, that's more common, but an Olympian god with a mortal mother, not
On my way.
Semele was the daughter of Cadmus and Hermione. We will go back to that because they're quite similar. But for now, it's all about Semele. So Semele and Zeus had an affair, and this is one of those nice, sensual ones, which is so rare, but a great good. But shocker of shockers, Hera finds out. She transforms herself into an old clone, Hera, and she finds Semele, who confides in her. She tells Hera that she's pregnant and the father is Zeus, the king of the gods. Hera, in all her woman-blaming glory, decides to throw the seeds of doubt. But she doesn't believe her. Like, the father of her baby is free, and doesn't believe her at all. That's a pretty crazy claim. Which, of course, is a pretty crazy claim. So Semele starts to doubt herself, just as Hera wanted. Now, Semele doesn't know what's going on, so she confronts Zeus. She tells him he has to show himself to her for real, to prove that he is in fact
I'm
Zeus.
going for jungle. Enemies in the left jungle. Attack
This
left
is
lane.
not a smart request, though. Semele also that's how Perseus' mom ended up having stacks of gold falling from the ceiling. Zeus, being a tiny, decent dude, for one, begs her not to act
Friend.
because he can make her any other way. What he doesn't tell her, though, is why he can't show himself to her, which, frankly, I think would have been more convincing than just, please don't ask me that. Listen that to, if I show you myself, you'll straight up die. Maybe she would have changed her mind about it. But Zeus doesn't do that because he may be the king of the gods, but he's not the sharpest relationship. Or sharpest needle in the hat, because there might have been out there. So, he appears to Semele in his true form. Breathed and lightning bolt, which probably looks pretty cool. Semele, of course, doesn't see this super cool activity because she's straight up working the flames. Awesome. Totally cool. Zeus then rescues baby Dionysus, who somehow survives his mom bursting into flames because obviously Zeus cares more about his male offspring than for his mother. So he said, I can't show you myself or you'll die. He rescues Dionysus by sewing him into his thigh. That's right. He takes the baby, he cuts it from his own side, he puts the baby inside, and he sews it right back up again. Which, once more, is one of those reasons I love Greek mythology. So a few months later, Dionysus is born on Mount Sparnos on the island of Icaria when Zeus releases his now fully grown baby from inside his thigh. Again, totally normal. Because of this, Dionysus is said to have two mothers, Semele and Zeus, which seems pretty unfair to me. Zeus gets so much credit for doing basically nothing. Like, you sewed a baby in your thigh. That's weird more than it is fatherly, or even, like, let alone motherly.
Time to take action. An enemy has been slain.
Well done.
And there it is. The first half of this episode, those are just the people Zeus got with, and then he made big battle and God, but it's Olympian. There's a whole other slew that didn't result in Olympians, but are just Zeus being creepy and weird and really quite troubling.
I'm building stacks.
Continuing now with a collection of other admirable instances of Zeus and his insatiable desire for women and romance. What are the links we must go to? Number 1, Io. Io was a beautiful hero. This city particularly aligned with Hera. Just as Athena reigned over Athens, Hera reigned over Argos. Io, as a good priestess to the goddess, is frequently hanging out and worshipping in the temple to Hera. Unfortunately, though, as a result of being so close to the queen of the gods, the king of the gods notices and he takes a creepy shine to Io. It is, of course, already very clear, but this is a bad thing. Zeus is kind of a pig. Zeus lusts after Io, and she continually rebuffs his advances. But Zeus can't take no for an answer, and depending on which story you read, eventually he either straight up rapes her, or she gives in to him, which frankly isn't much better, and probably, more to sugarcoat what is otherwise a pretty awful story. In either case, Zeus sleeps with Io, but of course, he needs to hide this from his wife, because Zeus is a pig for sure, but Hera also has this really shitty habit of punishing women who has done kind of a rape. What a surprise, right? I mean, that would never happen today. Anyway, so eventually, in an effort to hide his affair with Io and hide Io herself, Zeus transforms her into a heifer. That's right, he turns her into a cow, because he's an asshole. And apparently the only solution he can come up with is to turn this woman into a cow. You see, the trick is, he does this so that he can keep Io around, and so he can keep feeding her. Apparently he was fine with the fact that he would keep being intimate with a cow. Teach their own, I mean, again, the length you refer to. Hera, of course, she finds out who the cow really is, because, like I said earlier, spoilers, she always does. But also, like, why would Zeus just have a cow hanging around? Honestly. And she tricks Zeus into giving her Io. Hera says she wants the heifer as a present, and Zeus obviously has no way of refusing this request without making it obvious why he doesn't want her having this particular cow. So he gives her Io as a gift. It's a really good gift for someone to ask. Hera knows full well who she actually has in her hands, and then calls her loyal follower, a fellow by the name of Argus to watch over Io and prevent Zeus from killing her. Argus would act as her guard, following her wherever she went. You see, Argus Panoptes is no ordinary guy. He has 100 eyes. So there'll never be a moment when Io will be trapped in her gaze, but also it makes him really ugly. He's a 90% eye. Just picture that. Again, Greek mythology. He must look like a real freak, but he's really Zeus, though, he just can't keep away from the women he wants, so he sends Hermes, a full messenger, and distracts Argus, and eventually Hermes slays him. It's not clear if Zeus asked him to do that, or if Hermes just got work carried away. Either way, Zeus dead. And Hera is totally distraught. This was her guy. Little side note, eventually to honor Argus, she places his 100 eyes into the feathers of his peacock, which is why they look like eyes. Just think that's adorable. So, more importantly, perhaps most importantly, that's where J.K. Rowling got the first name of the character Filch, the caretaker from Harry Potter. His name is Argus Filch because he sees all, almost as if he has 100 eyes. J.K., you are the queen. But our story isn't done yet. With Argus now disposed of, and Hera horribly depressed about it, Zeus, good husband that he is, not actually, frees Io. Hera, totally pissed, sends a gadfly to follow Io around forever, continually stinging her to this, always. Because at this point, the poor woman is still a cow. Eventually, Io is turned back into a woman, thank God, and of course, Zeus learns no lessons, and he still can't keep his hands off of her, and they end up having a couple of kids. The moral of the story here is, there have always been awful men in this world, and there have always been women who will blame the victim. Honestly, Hera, why didn't you just turn Zeus into a cow and then have him continually stop?
Now is the time to take action.
Number 2. Europa. Europa is the daughter of a Phoenician king. Phoenicia, at this time, was a civilization on the Mediterranean coast of the Middle East, like Lebanon, Syria, Israel kind of area. It doesn't actually matter, but it's a bit of a history. So Europa, she's another mortal that Zeus just can't keep his bloody hands off of. She's young though, like a teenager, so extra gross. Obviously that doesn't matter to Zeus. He decides he wants her, and his solution in this case is just straight up abduction. But there's a trick. Zeus can't show himself to Europa, we know this already. I'm not sure how this applies to Io, push that out of the way. She never blew up. Continuity until Zeus in the case of Europa, Zeus cannot show himself to her. So, since he can't just roll up all white-bearded and holding a thunderbolt, instead, he transforms himself into a white bull. An obvious way to seduce a woman, if I've ever heard one. So his bull self strolls up to where Europa and her friends are hanging out by the sea, and basically he just pulls his animal from her. He pulls up, acts all tame and social, and Europa totally takes the bait. She's all over this bull, petting it and fawning over it. She's talking baby talk, the whole shebang. She has no idea it's actually a creepy old man trying to rape her. Eventually, she climbs right up onto his back. Zeus takes his opportunity and he leaps out into the sea and just starts swimming. Europa can't get away. I think we have to assume she can't swim, so she's basically just holding on while this mystery bull carries her off into the ocean.
Now is the time to take action.
No reason to panic. Zeus takes her over to Crete, where he almost certainly rapes her, but she also becomes queen, so it's the line, I guess? Not really. Her brother, Cadmus, of the Cadmus and Harmonia I mentioned earlier, he ultimately goes on quite the quest to help find his little sister. Basically, Europa never makes it home, she stays as queen of Crete, and she and Zeus have a slew of kids, including Cadmus' Minos, who becomes king and plays quite the role in future myths of the bull variety. Because of this, Europa's origin story of Crete, people there really kind of think the bulls, to say the least.
I wonder who put that piece of slippery. An ally has been slain.
Number 3, Thalia. Thalia is a nymph. She's the daughter of the god Hephaestus. Zeus appears to her as an eagle, swoops down, carries her away. Then he rapes her by a river in Sicily, and when he fears Hera will find out, he buries her in the ground. That's right, he just straight up buries her. Super chill.
Right.
Number 4, Aegina. Speaking of eagles, Zeus also appeared as an eagle to abduct Aegina, also a nymph. Her father pursues Zeus, trying to get her back. It's pretty definitely such a rare response as to be actually murdering. People almost never find any systems with Zeus with a face off with, but Zeus won't let a pesky father deter him from his goals. He rapes Aegina on an island, and he throws his thunderbolt at her father, forcing him to give up in return. The island, though, does take her name, but Hera, in all her misplaced anger, sends a plague. Number 5, once more with feeling, Zeus transforms himself into an eagle and visits, this time, a boy named Ganymede. He's just minding his business, tending to his flock of sheep. Zeus abducts Ganymede and brings him up to Mount Olympus to be both his cupbearer and a virtual sex slave. Zeus is an equal opportunity defender, which is kind of nice, but if you look at the details, Zeus does way more awful things to women. Like, he abducts this boy, but takes him up to the temple. Like, he basically just puts them up to the kingdom of the gods. Like, he has to be your cupbearer, and I mean your sex slave, that's not great. But basically, I mean, let's just compare. Like, one guy that Zeus abducts and he gets pretty golden treatment by Hera. He also gives Ganymede's father some horses in return for, you know, abducting his son and basically holding him hostage for the rest of his life.
Ultimate is
Whatever.
ready.
Number 6, Leda. No more eagles, but don't worry, we're staying on the bird train. Leda is the daughter of an Aetolian king and the wife of King Tyndareus of Sparta. Leda is a beautiful and powerful woman, cannot escape Zeus's notice. Out of his habit, he takes her from his bar and decides to just paint out himself and surround her. But, like with Europa, eagles appear to Leda and seduce her away. Hence to trick her. Ever creative, disappears and then this poor defenseless swan is playing with the blue eagle. Ancient Greeks really like to take advantage of women that have, I don't know, compassion and like animals.
You have been
Real flaw, lady. This is particularly notable though, and also with previous times that Zeus was transformed himself into an eagle, because the eagle is a symbol of Zeus. Like,
There
that's
is
his
trouble in the
animal,
forest.
I guess. It's just something that makes it even more sleazy in the previous stories and just kind of weird in this one. Anyway, Zeus is a swan, a beautiful creature that appears to Leda and it's terrifying. It's just trying to escape this eagle. Leda then takes him to all around like humans like the people. little does she know is actually a creepy old man god. Somehow, Zeus ends up having sex with her as a swan, which frankly is disturbing. The swan, I mean, do swans have penises? I don't know,
Now's
birds
the
are
time
weird.
to take action.
Anyway, they do it. Super weird, and of course it also happens on the same night that she also happens to have sex with her husband. The result is 2 eggs. That's right, eggs.
Ultimate is ready.
2 of them. 2 lays eggs. From these eggs, ultimately comes melon, eventually with Troy's eggs, like Minecraft, eventually with much tragedy, and Catherine and Poland. Catherine and Paul was a character in the Hunger Games trilogy, but that's always pissed me off, frankly, because I
Let
don't
me give you some
any
of
relevant
my
connection
energy.
besides the mythology. Missed opportunity, if you ask me. Number 7, Danny. You'll remember Danny from the Perseus episode, which was, of course, awesome, so it would be hard to revisit that one. But just another quick rundown, because what isn't this creepy way to present women in a big shower of water? Danny is the daughter of Odysseus. Odysseus learns that there's a prophecy, never a good sign, and that the child is born through him. So, of course, he walks on a tower,
Your
totally chill.
friends are in need of
But
assistance.
Zeus can't keep his hands away, and in all his creepy wisdom, the day has a magic in which he comes to Danae in the night.
Retreat.
And this might
Okay.
be his weirdest plan ever. He appears in Danae's room as a shower of words. A shower of words. A shower of
Okay.
words falls from the ceiling, and some sex with her and impressing her. And of course, nothing happens without consequences to the man. When Danae visits her child, Count Perseus is immediately terrified. He locks the child and Danae in a wooden crate and he sends them out to
No.
sea.
Got
As we
him.
know, ultimately she's saved. Perseus is her son. Things end up really well for her, which is super rare. So we should hold her as a real example of goodness, I suppose. Oracle at Delphi, where the ancient world sought their prophecies. She was basically the law. When she was disregarded, good old Nemesis came around to fuck shit up. Nemesis is the goddess of just and wrathful retribution. Another badass. Venus presides over the idea of a proper relationship between a man and a woman. A little more than ironic, given she was apparently a second wife to Zeus, something Hera almost certainly didn't appreciate. With Zeus, Famous had a slew of kids. The Horai, who are goddesses who are the personifications of the seasons and represent time. Horai means the hours. The Mare, who were the fates. 3 women whose job it was to control the fate of basically every human. One of them was in charge of spreading the thread of a person's life, another in charge of measuring it, and the third in charge of cutting the life thread at the end of a person's life. Again, these are the ladies that were conflated with the gray eye in Disney's Hercules. Do you remember the gray eye? The woman who shared one eye and a tooth? It's cool ladies. The fates were less scary, but what they did was pretty awesome. So basically, it's like they start your life with this string, and then the measuring is of how long you'll live, and then they cut it and you die. I just think that's fucked and also awesome. Number 11, Mnemosyne. Mnemosyne is also a Titan. She's the personification of memory, which is pretty cool, and her name is probably my favorite word in ancient Greek mythology. Mnemosyne. Just try to spell it, I dare you. Zeus got with Mnemosyne, and she ultimately gave birth to the 9 Muses. You know the Muses, 9 ladies who handled, I guess, creativity and different things about the world. They're really cool. I'm not gonna try to say their names because, frankly, I'm having trouble finding a list, and also I'm gonna pronounce it all awfully. But basically, it's like they had one for music, and they had one for memory and poetry and everything awesome and good in the world. That's all to say, sometimes Zeus did some good, but mostly it was the women's doing, let's be perfectly honest. And there it is, the really troubling story of Zeus and his many, many escapades. Frankly, it just seems like it had to be done in one episode of just a list. There's not too much story to it, so I apologize, but I think it's really important to note how slutty, I don't want to use the word slutty because it's always meant towards women, but how it's amazing that Zeus could do this stuff. That this was the king of the gods. This was the guy they worshipped. And yeah, the gods were flawed in their eyes, so much more than Christianity's God is flawed. They had real problems, and they were human, they cheated on their wives and everything, but, basically they were still gods. And the idea that they came up with this many stories about men doing such awful things is, I think, troublingly indicative of how it was in ancient Greece, and I mean that's true based on the history and everything anyway, but I mean, just the idea that someone came up with this and they were like, hey, yeah, let's have the king of the gods just rape everyone, how's that, right? That's a great idea, that's perfect. Anyway, on that note, thank you so much for listening. This has been really exciting for me. I've been wanting to do this for so long. I absolutely love talking about myths and telling myths, and now I have to do so much research. It's like homework that I never thought I'd have. But I really appreciate that the world is giving me this outlet for a sort of semi-educational ranting. It's much appreciated. And now that we're getting farther along in the podcast, and I'm going to keep going, hopefully have more story-based ones. I've just got to come up with the time to write everything. I don't want to focus entirely on heroes, and unfortunately, male heroes are basically where we get all our full-blown stories, but more to come. In the meantime, I'd really like to ask anyone listening to just do me a favor. If you like this, please rate and review in iTunes. It really helps me get higher on the charts, and so it helps other people discover it, and I would really like it if other people were learning these crazy things about myths and, how awful ancient men were. Tell your friends, tell anyone, share the love. I started on Instagram, it's at MythsBaby, and a Twitter, it's also at MythsBaby, but I haven't tweeted yet. There will be a Facebook when I get around to come up with enough pictures to put on it. Just even that one cover photo, guys, it's just, I gotta find something that's that long. It's a hard life. Anyway, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter in the meantime, and thank you so much. I'll be back next week with, I don't know what yet, because I haven't done the homework, but it'll be something good. Thank you so much. I'm Liv, and I love this shit. Hello, this is Let's Talk About Myths, baby. I'm Liv. I'm here to talk to you about the mania that is Greek mythology. It's all just so exciting. Every day something new and crazy. So, I'm here today with the inaugural mini-myth. Basically, my plan here is to release these sort of miniature episodes that will sort of complement the other ones. Basically, the point is that there are so many myths that are just tiny snippets. They're just kind of little insights into how the ancient people of the past, they often explain how a certain earthly phenomenon came to be, or why something is called what it is. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to release episodes once a week on Friday, little sort of snippets, maybe half length, I have no idea. It's all very difficult to figure difficult to figure out. It's just a matter of, you can write a lot of words on a document, and it turns out when you say it out loud, not that long, it's causing me anxiety, let me tell you. The point is, I'm going to release these mini myths, 10 to 15 minutes long on a Friday, just a little bonus mythology for your weekend. And then on Tuesdays, the standard length that I did before will happen. So basically I'm saying, this is a short one, it's Friday, hopefully. I'm still figuring out the timing of uploading stuff, and nothing seems to work out like I want, but ideally, it's Friday, hello, and I will be back with a standard episode length on Tuesday. I'm also here today with a brand new logo, which is the most exciting thing ever. It was created by my great friend, Matthew Dunleavy. Thank you, Matthew. It's so lovely. I'm very excited. This is mini myth number 1. Echo, 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 and narcissus. This week's mini myth is the story of why we have echoes. Now, you may have been led to believe that there was some fancy scientific reason why we have echoes. Something to do with the space around us and sounds bouncing off of things and whatnot. Science would have you believe that that's why an echo happens in some areas and not others. But as somebody who's, not much into science, I completely believe science. I just want to be different from the classics today. All to say, I'm here to tell you that the real explanation is far simpler. You see, the story of echoes began with sex addict with a penchant for nymphs. So, little classy man. One day, he was creeping on a bunch of nymphs. And frankly, in this case, they were actually totally into it, so more power to them. But, of course, Zeus is not one for subtlety, and it wasn't long before Hera came around, wondering where her husband was and, what he might be up to. She doesn't trust him. I wonder why. So Zeus is off with a collection of these nymphs. I really couldn't tell you how many, but there are more than one, so. But there's one nymph in particular, part of Zeus's new harem, and she's feeling tempted with the king of the gods. It's not clear why, but she is. She wants to distract Hera to keep her from discovering Zeus with his new lady friend, so she starts to talk. The nymph is just chatting away, just talking about who knows what, anything to keep Hera from looking any closer into the whole Zeus nymph goings on. But of course, Hera finds out. What did I tell you about Hera always finding out? So she finds out she's being tricked, and even though it was her husband who was cheating on her, she of course punishes Echo because of the distraction, because it's Hera. And so she curses Echo, making it so that from that point on, she'll only ever be able to repeat the last words that were spoken to her. She'll never be able to voice her own thoughts or feelings or answer anybody or talk at all. Awful. Frankly, it's probably one of the worst things. It really sucks. So it does really suck for Echo, and she's kind of driving herself crazy. She's just wandering the forest by herself. She doesn't really, who's she going to talk to? She can't talk to anyone. What's the fun in spending time with other people and it's not just like that she can't talk, it's like, if I say something, it's like that game that kids play that's obnoxious as all hell, and it's just like, I'm gonna repeat every single thing you say to me as if that's not literally the most important thing to do. So, she's not hanging out with anyone, she's avoiding anyone she possibly can, and I don't blame her. But in this case, she's wandering the forest, and sometime after this forest has overtaken her, and she comes upon a man. And he is the most beautiful man she has ever seen. We're talking like Ryan Gosling mixed with the Oscar Isaacs, throw in, I'm having trouble thinking of hot men, all the hotties is what I'm trying to say here. This man is out hunting with his friends, but she spots the group. So in a very fictional and mythical and very much men putting a story onto women, she immediately falls truly madly deeply in love with this strange man she's seeing in the middle of the forest and doesn't know at all. She wants to say something to him, anything would do, but she just can't say anything. And truly, I mean, this is how you know that the myths were made up by men. It's a little bit far-fetched, even for a story. I can imagine seeing a guy that, oh, you are super hot, I would like to get to know you, but we are told she is in love. Woman is in love. Eventually, this man is separated from his friends, and he starts to call out for them. Echo is still hanging around. She's being a bit weird. Again, making up the story when it comes to women. And so when she hears him call out, all she can do is repeat his words back to him. Is anyone there? He calls, and she calls it right back. Come here, he tries, and he hears the same thing repeated right back. Now, this young man was already prone to a quality that starts with the letter N, but doesn't exist yet in this world, so I'll just say that it's quite himself. And like I said, the story was made up by men. Anyway, the story was made up by men, and so of course the man in the story reacts awfully to what is, I admit, very rude. A woman that she is, but he loses his mind. Eventually, she feels like she can show herself because he's been calling out and she's been calling back, and she rushes towards him, and she just can't keep her hands to herself. And fine, this might be construed as coming on a bit strong, given they haven't yet met, but like I said, dude loses his mind, so he just not just like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know you, could you go away? It's literally like he acts as if she has insulted him in the most awful way possible, or attacked him, or has been stalking him for months. He doesn't take it well. He's an ass. He totally rejects her, doesn't give her a chance at all. He's not. Rightly so, I would think. But then, seeing a woman who's not psyched by the way a man has treated her, the goddess Nemesis takes notice. And she sees this guy being a real dick to a woman who is really just being honest about her admittedly kind of obsessive feelings, and she thinks that he deserves punishment. See, Nemesis is a real badass. She leads him to a nearby pond, and he spots his reflection in the water. He is apparently quite stupid on top of being an ass, and so he doesn't realize that it's just his own reflection, and he falls in love with this handsome man staring back at him from, the water, because it's basically a mirror. And he just stares and stares and stares. He stares at his reflection for so long that he eventually withers away and dies. This man's name was Narcissus, and he is the first narcissist. Funny enough, the flower doesn't always come from his name, and his story does, but mainly the word narcissist, and then the flower just happens to be named after a narcissist. I don't know. Echo, though, watching this happen, she doesn't know her own self-worth, because she never gets over it. She just is in love with this man she didn't know for the rest of her life. And eventually she too withers away and dies. And so, all we have left is her voice, which just repeats our work back to us when we just, by complete coincidence, happen to be in locations which scientifically could be reasons to create info. Thank you so much for tuning in to this inaugural Smit. Please give me a solid and rate and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you're listening. It really helps others discover it and helps me feel like people are listening. It's all around good things, and it takes 2 seconds of your time, so please and thank you. The podcast is actually now available on iTunes, Google Play Store, Stitcher, SoundCloud, possibly more places because internet. The show's Instagram is @MitsBaby. The show's Twitter is @MitsBaby. We have a Facebook page. I said we as if it's not just me sitting in a room with my cat. We have a Facebook page, and it is also @MitsBaby. It has minimal content, but I am working on it for now, you can hit like and make me feel good. Thank you again. My name is Liv, and I love this shit.
Every mortal living or dead. Yes.
Hello, this is Let's Talk About Myths, baby, the podcast where I live. Absolute crazy person tells you a story from ancient Greek mythology. I don't know why I'm singing, I'm not very good at it. So, guys, thank you so much to everyone who's been listening. It's been really exciting for me. I would love to hear from you too if you're at all inclined. I've been rambling about all the places you can reach me, and I'll do it again at the end of the episode, but just putting it out there. I'd love to hear from anyone. Suggestions, comments, amazing compliments. Do you want to hear a particular myth sometime? Tell me. I got kind of a list, but just sort of going everywhere. On our last full episode, we covered Zeus's escapades, and this week we're going to delve into the ramifications of one such union. Also, a little bit of extra fun. This week's episode will bleed into next week's episode because connected in mythologically crazy ways. Quick note, for anyone who could possibly be as troublingly nerdy as myself, this story is really a combination of Greek myths and later interpretations by the Romans. A man, Ovid, really popularized it, and he was a Roman. So, that's all to say, I'm venturing out a bit. The Greek myths were so interconnected with their later Roman interpretations that they generally do tend to blend together more often than not. I mean, even the name Hercules is Roman, it's not Greek. You know, he was Heracles in Greek, but I guess it doesn't have the same ring to it, or Disney didn't pick it. I guess it really would have been Kevin Sorbo even before whoever, guys. Somehow, Hercules is just not. Anyway, nerd disclaimers aside, we're going into one of Zeus's creepy encounters from the last episode, Europa. We're going to cover Europa and what that, let's call it what it is, abduction resulted in. This is episode 4. Queen Pasiphae did what with the bull?
Now is the time to take action.
If you'll recall, Zeus kidnaps the teenage Europa by appearing to her in the form of a beautiful white bull. He tempts her with his animal cuteness, and she climbs aboard, only to have him leap from the beach and out into the sea, where he just starts swimming. Zeus brings Europa to the island of Crete, where he, in effect, installs her as queen in the Cretan city of Knossos. They have a few children, which starts a kind of bull dynasty on the island of Crete. That island, if you don't know, is part of Greece, but it's really far south in the Mediterranean. It's closer to Egypt than it is to Greece. This is just a brag, but I've been there and my god, it's so beautiful, and all I want in this world is to go back. Historically, like way back, it was kind of a world in itself in ancient Greece. All the little regions that we know from history and mythology were kind of kingdoms in themselves back then anyway. This is before the whole like super crazy air quotes democracy came around. So they were all kingdoms and they all had their own kings, but something about Knossos, which Crete, was so far away from Greece that it was just kind of like a separate place entirely. It's actually some of the earliest Greek civilizations were on the island of Crete. They were called the Minoans, and they were awesome. They built a number of what archaeologists call palaces, and that's because the archaeologists that discovered them, he wanted it to be this palace of Knossos, like what we're going to cover in this story. He wanted it to be Knossos so bad that he kind of convinced himself and everyone else. We found this complex that they created on Crete. The ancient Greeks, they did this, and there were so many of these. They were massive, these intricate complexes with throne rooms and mosaics and these massive cisterns that held something. So basically this archaeologist, he finds this and he says, oh my god, this has to be the Palace of Knossos. Like, that's throne room, that's King Minos' throne room. It's this whole thing. They just kind of place history and myth onto a location. It happened a lot back then in sort of the turn of the century archaeologists before there were kind of like rules and ethics, I guess, because the guy who discovered Troy and the same with the guy who discovered Mycenae, two guys for all three of these locations, and I never remember who's who, but anyway, when they found Troy, you basically went to Turkey and he found this spot that had these giant walls, and he was like, oh, that's Troy. Troy had big walls. And then another guy goes to Mycenae and he finds this mask of this random guy's face, and he's like, oh my god, this is the face of Agamemnon. And this mask to this day is still called the Mask of Agamemnon, and it's almost certainly not Agamemnon, because he was probably definitely a myth, but it's just super fun anyway, and we have these places that we can call those ancient worlds, even if there is little to no archaeological proof that they were associated with the mythology at all. Like, Troy was probably Troy, but the Trojan War was pretty debatable. Anyway, this is an archaeology podcast, though, not a nerdy archaeology podcast, but I'm going to count it. The Minoans. They worshipped females, they painted badass dolphins on their walls, they were all around fascinating. Again, I'm going into history and mythology just a little bit more. Eventually, of course, the patriarchy took over, so there isn't much mythological proof of their worship of women, but archaeologically there's some pretty good evidence, and it's pretty cool. All to say, like, this was all happening 2000 BCE, like 4,000 years ago. It's totally crazy. The Minoans even invented a language that, to this day, we have been unable to translate. It's called Linear A, and for all we know, they've discovered the key to immortality, or they've detailed conversations with aliens, and it's all just waiting for us to translate. In all honesty, there's a similar language called Linear B, which was from a bit of a later period and on the mainland Greece, and basically all the written records using Linear B were like ledgers of what type of grain and how much of it was in storerooms, so it wasn't that exciting, and that's probably what Linear A is. But what if it's not? What if it's the secret of life? Again, Liv, this is a mythology podcast, calm down. The term Minoans came from this ancient king, King Minos, and he was, mythologically, the son of Zeus and Europa. Zeus and Europa had 3 sons, and Minos was kind of in competition with his 2 brothers on who would be the king of Crete. I guess Minos did officially ascend the throne, but his brothers were basically like, hell no, and they tried to take it from him. You know how brothers can be, always stealing kingships. Minos decides that in order to defeat his brothers, or I guess just sort of, he was already king, so he basically get rid of his brothers, I don't know. He's against them in some way. And he asked Poseidon for help in defeating his brothers in whatever way he needs to. Poseidon is, of course, the god of the sea. He's also the god of horses, but don't ask me why. Anyway, Minos asks Poseidon for help. He prays to Poseidon, asking him to send a snow-white bull as a show of support. That's right, another bull. The white bull is, of course, how his father seduced his mother, which I think makes this a hint creepier. So Minos asks for this bull, and Poseidon is a nice guy, and he sends it to him, along with a show of support for the king. Or I guess this bull kind of is the show of support. So now there's this fancy white bull hanging around Knossos. Minos is then expected to kill the bull to show that he's honoring Poseidon for this super pointless and pretty creepy gift. Needless animal death, if I've ever seen one. But, spoilies, Minos doesn't kill the bull. He thinks it's just too damn pretty. He's a sucker for a beautiful bull. I think it runs in the family. Poseidon is not psyched by this pretty obvious betrayal, and he's basically like, well, fuck you then, Minos. I'm gonna totally fuck up your life now. And he does a little godly magic, and he makes Minos' wife, Pasiphae, fall truly, madly, deeply in love with this bull. And godly magic is potent as fuck, my friends, because boy does she fall in love. Meanwhile, in the lives of people not in love with bulls, Minos also has his own personal inventor. This is a fellow by the name of Daedalus, and he lives on the island of Crete with his son Icarus.
Your fight
Daedalus
isn't.
is awesome. He's
Two
basically
foes
the
are not
king
a
of fucking
challenge, I
crazy,
see.
incredible
Bravo! They
inventions.
really know how
So
to put on a
Daedalus,
show.
this resident inventor, is called to see Pasiphae. See, she's been hanging out with her new love lately, this white bull, and she's been feeling kind of frustrated. See, as much as she is truly, madly, deeply in love with this rando animal, the animal just doesn't seem to be into her unrequited love. She's pretty worked up about it. She's feeling forlorn, melancholy. She's walking around the palace just huffing in sadness and, frankly, in sexual frustration. Finally, she turns to Daedalus. He's called in to see her, and she asks him for a simple, totally normal, and not at all creepy invention. She wants him to make her a wooden cow. Yes, a hollow wooden cow. You see where I'm going with this? Because I will tell you where I'm going with this. Pasiphae wants Daedalus to make her a hollow wooden cow that she can hide in. And boy, does Daedalus deliver. He creates a cow that is realistic enough to convince the bull that it is indeed a real cow. The bull is suddenly super interested because, he's into other cows, unlike someone. Or I guess too much like someone. Granted, this is Poseidon's fault, yes, but I do think we need to give Pasiphae credit where credit is due. This is a creepy, creative way of solving a human versus bull problem, and it is all her own. The first love, that's not good. Man, is she showing some major ingenuity. You can't let a man take credit for everything, right? Anyway, so Pasiphae hides inside this wooden cow. She's, strategically placed. And anyway, long story short, she definitely has sex with that bull while in the wooden cow, and she definitely gets impregnated because, mythology. Now, as much as I want to give Pasiphae credit where credit is due, let's also take a beat here and talk about how fucked this is. Men in ancient Greek mythology were allowed to fuck whoever, whatever they wanted. Anytime, any place. They transformed into animals sometimes, sure, but it was always the physical form and not some weird contraption. But female sexuality and a woman with certain human desires was so troubling to the ancient Greeks that they came up with a story about her using a crazy, deceptive contraption just to get away with bestiality. She's not allowed to have sexual desires, even when they're forced upon her by god magic. What have you said about how awesome it would be to be female back then? So often I think, God, what I wouldn't give to experience life where mythology is real and it's what you live your life on. And then I think, oh, but I'd be a woman and it would suck a lot. I'm pretty sure Aphrodite is the only woman who could do whatever she wants sexually, and all the power to her. But she was the goddess of sexual desires, but doesn't say much about the other regular ladies out there that also, had human needs. Anyway, all to say, it's fucked, and Pasiphae is impregnated, and she eventually gives birth to the famous Minotaur. This is a creature that was the result of a human woman having sex with a bull. And the Minoan culture of Crete was built around the idolatry of bulls. They worshipped them more so than any other animal, which is, I guess, not saying a lot, but it was bull-centric. And whenever this mythical interpretation of their thing for bulls came into the common understanding of Crete, that's hard to say, when it became oh yeah, well, this woman had sex with a bull. But either way, for the history of Greece, this was a thing. The Minotaur was around, and bulls were something special in some way. Anyway, it's weird and crazy and super cool, and I love it. As with basically all Greek mythology. So just to reiterate, as much as this troubling concept was created by men to show how very problematic it was when women had sexual desires, I'm going to go ahead and just reclaim the whole idea for Pasiphae by saying again, animal or not, this is the most creative seduction ever. So well done, Pasiphae. You got yours. Applause goes to you, my good woman. Now, The Minotaur she gave birth to is a creature who is half man and half bull. In most of the iterations, he has the top half of a bull with horns and weird arms with hooves, but also like crazy human abs. And then the bottom half is a human, just walking along on normal standard human legs. He's really a sight to behold. It's super weird. Who came up with that? Honest, this is what I love. Something about the top half bull. Because, we got centaurs and you have satyrs and everything, but those are all top half human, and there's something about that that's just so much more normal. Anyway, top half bull really has me reeling. Originally, Minotaur was a proper noun, but it was co-opted, much like Pegasus, into a common noun also, which just refers to basically anything Minotaur-like. But in Greek mythology, there was only this one. There wasn't a whole collection of ladies finding ways to seduce bulls, which is, I guess, good for feminism. Pasiphae, nurses the Minotaur, treats him like her own, which, ouch, but as he grows older, he becomes more and more like, a bull. Unexpected, I know. So he's growing up and he's becoming crazy ferocious. But can you blame him? He must have been the most popular kid in school. Bullying does real damage, And of course, Pasiphae and Minos also went on to have their own standard human children, so on top of bullying and being a super freak, poor Minotaur also has sibling rivalry to deal with. By way of her human husband, Minos, Pasiphae gives birth to 2 daughters, Ariadne and Phaedra. She had other kids too, but for the purposes of this story and the story that will follow, Ariadne and Phaedra are the most important. They also have the best names ever. And who cares about their brothers? Not me. So the Minotaur's getting a bit cray, and Minos and Pasiphae have to figure out what to do with him. Much like how Pasiphae got busy with the bull, they called upon their old friend and badass inventor, Daedalus. They asked Daedalus to create something that would safely house the Minotaur, who, I guess as a little PS, had discovered that he could basically only eat people, minor detail. So they need something created where the Minotaur can live, but also with some means of him getting fed as well. None of his family members want to go near him, I wonder why, so this thing had to be kind of self-sufficient in a way. Daedalus, genius behind the bull seduction vehicle, comes up with an idea. He builds a labyrinth where the Minotaur will live. Now this is probably the most famous labyrinth of all time, at least that doesn't have David Bowie in the center. R.I.P. Daedalus builds the labyrinth because the thinking is that the Minotaur will be able to live in the middle, and then everyone in Crete can release prisoners or whoever into the labyrinth as food for the Minotaur. The prisoners nor the Minotaur would be able to leave because Daedalus has come up with some crazy, intricate design that is, I guess, whatever the opposite of impregnable is. Is it just pregnable? Maybe that makes logical sense. Also say you can't get out. Apparently, it was even so intricate that Daedalus himself had trouble getting out after it was built. This was, I assume, before it had a super scary Minotaur in the middle. And there you go. The labyrinth is built. They've placed Mr. Minotaur safely in the center, where he can't get out and eat people. He can only eat the people that King Minos forces into the labyrinth themselves. So, totally fine and not at all morally problematic. But the labyrinth is so vital to the safety of Knossos that now that Daedalus knows its secrets, having, built it, King Minos decides he can't have Daedalus leaving Crete and revealing the secrets of the labyrinth to the rest of the world. The rest of the world being, where Minos is getting his human sacrifices, so it's a pretty touchy subject. Daedalus and by extension his son Icarus are now prisoners on the island of Crete. And like I said, Crete is really, really far from mainland Greece, so it's not as if they can easily escape. Minos is keeping a strict eye on all the boats that are leaving. Every one of them is being searched, TSA style. But Daedalus, being the badass inventor that he is, decides he'll outsmart Minos, which probably isn't hard, He starts to construct wings that he and his son will wear to fly from Crete back to Athens. He collects all the feathers that he can, which isn't as hard as it could have been, given Crete is an island and Knossos is right on the coast, many a seagull losing their feathers, thank goodness. He builds the wings, tying together from smallest to largest the feathers to mimic the functionality of a real bird's wings. He secures everything with wax and string, and he shapes these massive wings to perfectly match a bird's. When one set is made, he tries them out. He secures the wings on his arms, and he begins to flap. He rises slowly in the air, and eventually he's buoyed up, floating weightlessly. Now he knows they'll work, so he makes the same style of wings for his son, and they're ready to take off. One quick warning, he says to Icarus, just don't fly too high, okay? Because these things are made from wax and string, and that sun is awfully hot. And, don't actually fly too low either, because if you get them wet, you're almost equally fucked. So just, don't be a dummy, okay? Both sets of wings work, and the two men fly high into the sky over the Mediterranean. It must have been a ridiculously beautiful view. That bright blue sea, the islands, and the boats beneath you. I'm pretty jealous, to be honest. I'm less jealous of what happens to dummy Icarus next, though. Now, I'm sure many of you know what's coming, because this is one of the most famous tales of youth stupidity. Icarus, forgetting the very sound warning his father gave him not 20 minutes ago, flies too close to the sun. And just as Daedalus predicted, Icarus's wings begin to melt in the hot sun, and it's only moments before Icarus plunges into the sea below and drowns. And, well, frankly, that's it. So this episode ends on kind of a bummer, what can I say? But our story with the old Minotaur and the labyrinth isn't over, my friends. Nope, next week I'll cover Prince Theseus of Athens and his adventures before and after his very famous run-in with the labyrinth and the Minotaur roving around it. I'll also just say for I don't even know what to call us out there, but there are two really good songs by the band Thrice about Daedalus and Icarus, which I just think is really cool and weird because they're pretty loud band, I guess, and they sing a lot about this particular Greek myth. There's one called The Melting Point of Wax, which I think makes a lot of sense what it's about, and one just called Daedalus, and they're both great. Recommend you listen. Thank you so much for listening again, everyone. Truly, it's wonderful to see that people are listening. It's really exciting. So, again, like I mentioned at the beginning, please feel free to reach out and be in touch. If you have suggestions of a myth you want to hear in the future, please let me know. I'm open to anything. You can reach me. Instagram is at MythsBaby. Twitter is at MythsBaby. Facebook is, guess what, at MythsBaby. There is not much on the Facebook yet, but there will be, and right now it at least exists. I also have a website where there is also not much on it, but I'm really prepping, you guys, mostly because I just wanted to make sure I had my name. So, guess what the website is? It's at it's just mythsbaby.com because it's a website and it's not a handle. If you would rate and review this podcast on iTunes, also available on Google Play and Stitcher and SoundCloud and probably a million other places because it's the internet, guys, and things just spread. Please check me out, listen, learn, subscribe, tell your friends, share this weird and totally magical world that is Greek mythology and the people who are crazy about it. Guys, it's been a good week. Next week, Theseus, the biggest asshole in Greek mythology. That's right, you thought Zeus was the biggest asshole? You were wrong. My name is Liv, and I love this shit.